I get very jealous. I have friends in the business who they put out a podcast and 100,000 people download it. And even that's small potatoes. And, I mean, you know how these things are, right? Somebody has 56 million followers and you're like, why? What is this person doing? Welcome, everyone, to the January 2026 edition of The Impact, a sustainable CT podcast for your edification, your enlightenment, and your entertainment, too. I'm Jim Hunt, Communications Director at Sustainable CT, so if you're looking for someone to blame for this podcast, well, you can blame me. But remember, this is never a one-way conversation. We always want to hear from you for our edification and enlightenment. Drop us a note, won't you, to info@sustainablect.org. The Impact is brought to you in part by the Tremaine Foundation. The Emily Hall Tremaine Foundation seeks and funds innovative projects that advance solutions to basic and enduring problems, and we are oh so glad they do. Visit them at tremainefoundation.org. Remember, we can't do what we do without you. We don't have a magical rainbow unicorn money tree, no sir, but you can be a Sustainable CT sponsor. Find out how at sustainablect.org. We have Adrian Huq with us today. What a delight. With the start of the new year, Adrian has become a brand new member of our board of directors. So that makes them sort of my boss. And it is extra special to have Adrian on our board because we have such a long and happy relationship with them, and they're no stranger to this show either. They've been a guest on our show in 2023, and they even hosted the program. You did, back in 2024. A breath of fresh air from my stodgy voice, that's for sure. Adrian is currently a graduate student at the Yale School of the Environment. Go Handsome Dan the Bulldog. You met Handsome Dan yet?
I have, yes.
Okay.
Shown up to several events.
Yeah, right. They're doing a master's in environmental management and a 2024 graduate of Tufts University. Go Jumbo. Jumbo the elephant. So that's good. Adrian is doing so many other wonderful things that it's hard to keep track. They are a cohort member of the nonprofit management program for emerging leaders of color under the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. Since 2018, they've worked on several environmental initiatives under the New Haven Leon Sister City Project. Most notably, they serve as co-founder of the New Haven Climate Movement Youth Action Team, which advocates for bold climate policy change on the city level, which is very cool. And let's not forget that Adrian has worked across 4 summers as a Sustainable CT Fellow and lived to tell the tale, working with both the Naugatuck Valley and Capital Region Councils of Governments. They serve on the board of directors for the Greater New Haven Green Fund, the Citywide Youth Coalition, and Urban Resources Initiative. Adrian is also a subcommittee member of the Connecticut Equity and Environmental Justice Advisory Council and was formerly part of the Connecticut Climate Education Advisory Committee. Holy smokes, Adrian. I mean, when do you sleep? You get time to just chill occasionally, or are you driven?
Sweet, sweet environmental dreams. It takes up so much of my brain capacity, but it's a good thing. Love having all of these thoughts swimming around, and they bring me joy, so nothing's a burden.
Well, that's good. They better, yeah, because if you that much. We are very lucky to have you on our board of directors and here with me today. So thank you much for taking the time for a return engagement. I really appreciate it. We'll have to get you back as a host. We're gonna do that.
I would love that. Thank you, Jim, for the introduction and for having me.
All right. First, let's catch up a little bit and find out how you're doing. How are things at Yale?
Things are going great. I start again with my final semester tomorrow. So happy to dive into the spring semester. Yeah, I mean, and just in the program itself, the Master of Environmental Management, I'm happy to be specializing specifically in climate change science and solutions, since climate change is my biggest interest, and that had been something like a niche that I couldn't find explicitly in my prior academic experience. So I'm happy to be in that specialization, and of course at a explicitly environmental school versus being like, you know, in the environmentalist bucket in like a sea of people with like all different majors and that kind of thing. So that's
Hmm.
special to be around, everyone that cares about the environment, but still feels very interdisciplinary in the sense that my classmates all have different angles they're approaching their environmental research or careers. School culture is very welcoming and social, and
Ah,
there are academic or social events nearly every other day. So there's always something exciting to stick around after class for. So it's
well,
very,
now,
very
and
positive.
Yale has a great reputation in the environmental space in a very quick
Absolutely.
period of time. They've come a long way. Was it an odd question, but I just need to know, was it hard to get in? I mean, this is Yale, and it's very it's a pretty highbrow program too. I mean, it's well known, it's pretty robust. Was it hard? Was it competitive to get in?
I'm not sure really what the academic I guess the admission cycle looks like or the percentage, but I knew that this was like the one graduate program I applied to. I was really, wanting to come back home to Connecticut
Yeah.
and I knew some alum of the program as well, heard great things, and I thought it would be a perfect next step, and I'm thankful that it worked out. But yeah, I think definitely like the local work experience I had definitely made my application stronger. So I'm thankful that it worked out for me as someone coming directly from undergrad. So I'm not sure all the dynamics that went into admissions, but I'm really excited that it worked out and to be part of such a prestigious program and
Yeah.
use that knowledge to continue to give back to my community. So.
Well, and the reason I'm asking, idle curiosity, the program does have a great reputation, and I guess I'm asking as someone who is involved in it currently, do you find your peer group and the professors and the syllabus and the actual program of study, does it live up to reputation?
I
You
would
would
say
think it
it
does.
does.
Yeah,
It can be pretty rigorous, depending on the classes that you take. And we have several like opportunities for like clinic type of classes where you're working with the client and doing these high level deliverables. That's essentially almost like consulting,
yeah.
but you're getting graded for it. But at the same time, it's a professional experience. So many opportunities like that. And there's some classes that incorporate like an international field trip where you're doing research or presenting at a conference. So there's a lot of ways that the classes are tied up with meaningful professional opportunities for people and hands-on learning, especially with our within our forestry school. Like I know our foresters are out there at the Yomars Forest or Great Mountain Forest doing their research.
Yeah.
So I feel like yeah, it's a demanding program, but there's so many ways that you can really use it to push forward your research or professional goals, and lots of avenues within the institution and outside of it with their partners.
Let's talk about the Sustainable CT Board of Directors because you're now a board of director member. That's pretty cool. I'm glad we managed to capture you for that. And you've joined with a pretty stellar group of folks, and I just want to mention their names. Give me a second because I want to make sure they get a shout out. Carl Fortuna, who's the first selectman of Old Saybrook. Matt Hart, executive director of Capital Region Council of Governments. I'm sure you're familiar with him because I worked with him,
Mhm.
right? Maureen Nicholson, who is the first selectman of Pomfret, and our old friend Ted Schaefer, too, who is currently serving as president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce in Northwest Connecticut. So we are very happy to have you among this group as well, and not only because you are so accomplished in your own right in such a short period of time, but frankly, because you bring a relatively young and decidedly activist perspective to this board, which is very valuable. Young people in there getting bringing some energy to the
Mhm.
whole thing, and you certainly can do that. What made you want to do this? Did we twist your arm? Did we go? Did we go reach out to you and say, Adrian, you got to do this? How did it happen?
So it was a very simple yes from me. Jess reached out around last summer with the invitation, and she, of course, did not have to do any begging at all. Last year, there were a lot of sort of like board invitations coming on my plate, and all for organizations that I'm really passionate about. And so there was sort of this seed in my mind about like the Sustainable CT board ever since I was a fellow. Like, for example, when you're a Sustainable CT fellow during the summer, you have the opportunity to optionally meet with a Sustainable CT board member who would give an hour or
Right.
two of their time to talk about their professional journeys and get to know a current fellow in person or on Zoom. So, two of the summers, I got to meet up with Sustainable CT's former board chair, Brian Garcia, in person at the Connecticut Green Bank in
Oh, that's
Hartford.
great. Yeah.
And so that was a great connection. He's a wonderful man. And unfortunately, our board terms did not line up. But if you're listening, Brian, I send my appreciation to you. Thank you for your board service. And another year, I was paired with former board member Hamza Ganapati, who was a former fellow who then served as a board member. We also graduated from Tufts University and grew up a few towns away from each other. So that was an exciting connection to make, and that kind of planted the seed for me of, oh, this is possible for someone who was a former fellow to become a board member, and then knowing a couple other people who are or have been on the board, including Ashley Stewart and Lata Swami.
Yeah.
So knowing a
Yeah.
lot of great people that have been or currently serve on the board, plus really just wanting to stay connected to Sustainable CT in a meaningful way, it made a lot of sense for me to say yes to joining the board. And yeah, and I'm excited to also bring I guess like geographical representation along with age representation to the board, representing, the New Haven area in a way, but also the Naugatuck Valley where I live. So yeah, I think it's an important step to take to represent my region, but also the Fellows Program and bring the perspective of a young person of color to the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are lucky to have you. You're so familiar with our organization. I mean, you just went through it. Yes, you know all the players. You have met with these people. You've worked with them over, at various stages. You're so familiar with what we do, and what we're trying to accomplish. What are your priorities then as a member of the board? Put your board hat on and say, what would be a best case scenario for us during your tenure as a board member?
Yeah, so over time, I've grown to think in a very development-oriented mindset as a product of helping run a small nonprofit and as a development intern for another nonprofit in New Haven. So I always kind of think of the grant cycle in my head and have been through the practice of writing and seeking out grants and other capacity building opportunities to support my work and the work of other organizations I care about, plus
Yeah.
having done a lot of peer-to-peer and grassroots fundraising to support environmental work. So having that development and outreach hat on is something that I hope to bring to Sustainable CT. So I'm pretty interested in either our outreach or development committee within the board for some particular priorities. I know that we are at a time where some of Sustainable CT's major foundational donors are phasing out their support in the next couple years. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to step in
Yeah, they
and
are.
yeah, and I want to try to help fill that gap with other value-aligned foundations who can step up to support us and or to think about trying to get the state of Connecticut to increase their funding for our organization. But I recognize that, governmental funding can be fickle year to year. So I think in a best case scenario that, we have found donors who can step in and fill that gap, or we're able to get that state funding to really, support the great work that you all are doing and have enough capacity to do that. And also on the communication side, love the work that you all do with the podcast and the website and very active on social media. So yeah, I think
I'd
finding
like to
ways
hear
to
that. That's great. Keep talking. That's great. Yeah.
so yeah, just finding ways to make sure like communication wise and publicly that people know about us and the opportunities that we provide and that our communications are landing with municipal staff or engaged volunteers who want to jump in and be a part of it and can understand what Sustainable CT does and is all about. And yeah, I guess even that small gap that remains of the 139 of 169 Connecticut's municipalities are in Sustainable CT. So,
Right.
hopefully during my time as a board member, we see a few more towns join and really, contribute to the social norming and push that, hey, a lot of your town colleagues are in this program, you need to join as well. So that's always a goal in the background, I think, of
Yeah.
getting a few more participants in the program. But
That
also,
that
the participants that are in the program, some have been, a little bit disengaged or like within the certification cycle. So yeah, empowering people to step back in.
Well, that last cohort is a tough nut to crack. Last remaining towns that have not been registered. Though we're making progress, especially given the new people we have brought on recently are doing really great work in making contact with these towns because they are fellows or former fellows. So, Katie Meteor and Summer, Lily Adamo, these are people who, having served as fellows, I have met with all these people, know the towns in their respective regions that they worked in, and now they're really reaching out and making that personal connection to bring some of these towns in that have, been hesitant. So that's good. I want to just pick up on something you said about communications, and yeah, it's wonderful. Thanks for the. I don't know. It sounded complimentary. I like that, but you know what it is, Adrian? It's like we just ended our annual appeal, second time. So it's actually annual because we did it 2 years in a row. It's hard. It's not easy to do, and it takes a lot of time, and it's asking a lot of people. But the big reason we do it is not for the money. The money is important. We can't do this without money, but it's for the outreach. It's really the opportunity for us to go out and tell, the entire state, not just town administrators, they're wonderful, not just activists on projects, town projects, they're wonderful, not just fellows, well, those people are wonderful, but Joe and Jill and Jane Smith and yada yada out there in Connecticut that have no concept of who we are, what we do, what we're trying to do. We want to go out and reach out to them. And this appeal is really turning away to do that. It's becoming a real matter of outreach, not just money making. So I agree totally. We need to do constantly a better job of reaching out to people and explaining what it is we're trying to do, and get their engagement, get their buy-in, get their involvement. Because at the end of the day, we really, I say it, I throw it out there as a line. We can't do this without you. We can't. Everybody's got to have a hand in what's going on. We are right in the middle of our 2026 fellowship application period, which is pretty exciting for us. Every year, it's a good time. It's very serious on one level, but it's also a point of engagement that's really a lot of fun for us. And you are exhaustively familiar with this. Let's talk about your experience as a fellow. What kept you coming back to the program for 4 summers? That's astonishing.
Yeah, well, I think one of the main draws for me was I really appreciate how Sustainable CT works at that nexus of nonprofit work plus government in terms of the pairing with the councils of governments and really having fellows be able to contribute both to the COG and its member towns and also Sustainable CT. So that was an interesting balance for me. And I really enjoyed both doing that Sustainable CT certification outreach to towns but also helping out with regional projects with the Council of Government and feeling connected to that work as well as someone who now has grown through the fellowship to enjoy urban planning and especially like transportation planning. So, yeah, I think professionally, being able to make those connections with, many times they're volunteers within, municipal sustainability teams, plus municipal staff, plus the COG staff and leadership, and you all as Sustainable CT staff. So I felt like I was surrounded by a great team on multiple levels, and of course, got to meet other people my age that were also in colleges within Connecticut. And so to have like so many almost cohort experiences all at once was really interesting. And of course, I really value longevity in my personal and professional life. So, and I feel and am tethered to in some way to every organization that I've once worked for. So I feel like that tether was something I wanted to keep going with and feeling accountability towards like the towns that I had worked with one summer, thinking, oh, it would be great to, step in right where I left off and continue to grow those relationships.
Yeah, that's a lot of grounding to meet all those people, to make all those connections and establish that kind of relationship. Those are invaluable. That's stuff you're going to have for the rest of your professional career, the
Mhm.
rest of your, and personal life and everything else.
Yeah.
That's how it's done. For those who don't know, and there are a few, I'm going to take a moment to explain. I'm going to digress and explain what the Sustainable CT Fellowship Program is all about. We place highly qualified fellows across the state's councils of governments, the COGs, to help cities and towns become registered or certified or recertified with Sustainable CT. And this happens during the summer. Now, the COGs, again, some people don't know this stuff. Like the COGs are Connecticut's regional planning organizations, and they are the equivalent of counties, like, right? In most states that will have counties. Connecticut, for some reason, doesn't. We have COGs. And fellows assist the cities and towns with a lot of COG territories on research and documenting their sustainability work. They support municipalities on sustainability initiatives and assist in COG projects. Fellows also have that opportunity, as you mentioned, to work with one another on a group project, which
Hmm.
is sometimes really fascinating. Also clear to understand this is a paid fellowship. I don't know
Yes.
if people do, are there such a thing as an unpaid fellowship? There are. They're still out
Yes.
there, aren't they?
Yeah. And
That's
it's,
crazy.
yeah, it's rough. Like a lot of, especially with how the job market's looking right now, there are, unpaid opportunities that come up, and it's, a stressor, I think, also for college students who are looking for something that's value aligned, professionally aligned, and can pay them. So I think it's really valuable to be able to work up to full time for the organization. So up to 40 hours a week for about 10 to 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Can provide, some really robust and needed professional experience while being paid.
Well, it's nuts to not be paid. What that does is really separate out the haves and the have-nots. You've got
Hmm.
to be independently wealthy to be able to go on this unpaid internships and fellowships. That's kind of crazy,
Hmm.
which you really risk losing some great talent that way. So anyway, so this is paid, and we're accepting applications right now for this program the coming summer in 2026. You need to be a college student or recently graduated. You need to be a permanent resident of our fair state. Or if you're from away, you need to be attending a Connecticut college. That's another way to do it, right?
Hmm.
And the application deadline is coming up fast. It's February 9th at 5 p.m. And you can read all about this where else at sustainablect.org. Just go to the employment page and it's all there. Is there anything else I missed about just the nuts and bolts of?
Yes,
I
that
think I
sounds
covered it.
just about right. Yep. And so yes, put some time into that application. You might be interviewed as well down the
Mhm.
line, but yeah, you
And it
know.
is competitive. I got to say, I mean, I don't want to put anybody off. I don't want to make anybody scared, but this is, we actually, we try to do our best to get really qualified people for this. So this is not like show up and, you're in. This is, you gotta, it is a competitive application process, and we do try to find the best people we can for this role. Why do you think somebody should apply?
Yeah, I think overall, if you are passionate about Connecticut and our great state, and or making our municipalities more vibrant places to live, more sustainable, more equitable, this is the right program for you. And also don't feel discouraged if your major is not related to the environment. We've had, fellows from all types of academic
Yeah.
backgrounds. And because Sustainable CT views sustainability in such a holistic way, there's really a place for everyone, even if you're not approaching from an explicitly environmental sustainability angle. There's
Mhm.
there's arts and culture, there's economic development, so many things that make our state great and make our cities and towns more vibrant places to live. So yeah, I would say, and also I guess reflecting back on my considerations for joining the program, like you mentioned, Jim, coming from that activist perspective, I've always sort of been on the outs of I'm pushing for change as a community stakeholder to my city government. And
Yeah.
now this is kind of like flipping of like, oh, I'm getting a look inside at how, town governments work. And so that was a really valuable thing for me to learn as well and to see into the other side of the curtain. So yeah,
Sure.
if you're looking for if you're interested in government on any level, whether that's like city or, something larger and even regional, I learned so much about regional governance, and about councils of governments that I would have never known. So if you like Connecticut, if you like government or nonprofit work, and if you like anything related to Sustainable CT's action menu, this is a great fit for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, that's fascinating. I want to ask you, so when you got your inside glimpse, you're an activist, you're passionate, you're demanding change, and then you get the inside view, and you're like, did it make you perhaps less strident? Did it make you perhaps understand that things can't happen like that, or not? Or did it teach you that come on, folks, let's move it. How exactly did that insider knowledge affect you?
Well, it definitely showed me how slow things can move on the town government level. And, it's all part of a certain process that governments have to abide by, whether that's like, putting that agenda on the website 24 hours before the meeting. It's, having all these certain deadlines you have to meet as a public facing government, and for fairness and for equity. So yeah, it definitely gave me a sense of more so of the timeline that things can move at, for example, like resolutions within town governments, but
Right.
also so many of the roles and responsibilities that fall on town staff, and how there's capacity issues and making all that work in your 40 hours a week. So yeah, it definitely gave me an inside glimpse at all the roles that towns take on to make our municipalities run day to day that often goes unnoticed by residents. So there's a lot of behind the scenes work to making our towns run that I didn't think about that now I do. But also it showed me how much work that volunteers put in to make their government's work in terms of like serving as a commissioner on these various commissions. Like for example, a lot of sustainability teams for Sustainable CT have members of their conservation commission on it, which are unpaid volunteers who are just happy to do this for their town and passionate about that work. So it showed me, yeah, I guess the realities of being a town staff member, being an elected leader, and being a volunteer who's on the commissioner side.
That said, climate change is an existential threat. It's very urgent.
Hmm.
I mean, it's crisis proportions, certainly regionally and worldwide. And so having an understanding, maybe, and being more empathetic for how the machinery of government moves at a pace,
Hmm.
it's running up against that urgency, that sense that we've got to move on this. We can't afford to wait on a lot of this stuff
Hmm.
much longer, which again kind of makes my head explode a little bit because I get you. I spent a lot of time in state, regional, municipal governments. I understand the bureaucracy involved. I understand all the and for a reason. It's not just there to as window dressing. A lot of time you have public hearings. You have a
Hmm.
process of engagement with the community that takes time. You can't just snap your fingers. This isn't no matter how Donald Trump may think otherwise. This is not a despotic operation where somebody just
Hmm.
points and things happen. We have to work together, and that takes some time. It's democracy is kind of slow and messy sometimes. That said, this is urgent. This is really, we really need to make a demand of everybody that we pull in the same direction and have an effect that is immediate, because
Hmm.
otherwise we're screwed. We're screwed. So I can see that tension, and I'm sure you're familiar with that too. Yes. I mean, I'm
Yes,
asking
yes.
you, I
Thank you
guess
for
that's a
raising
question.
that. Yeah, it's absolutely, frustrating to, try to, push people to think long term when there's so many short-term emergencies that come up for municipalities, and really
Yeah.
making the case that yes, your municipality needs to invest in this issue. It is expensive upfront, but when we're thinking long term, we're doing the right thing to mitigate climate change and save us costs and lives even in the end. So it's a
Yeah.
tough bargain to try to make. And it's a very big conflict, to try to work within the pace of municipal government, but really push and show that climate change is urgent, even if people don't believe they're seeing it right now. So that's been a push and pull of my whole activist career so far, and pushing city governments for change. So.
Yeah. Well, for good or ill, I think we are seeing more, definitely for ill in a practical sense, we're seeing more effects of climate change here at home in Connecticut, whether it's drought
Mhm.
or, smoke coming over from the Midwest, or from Canada. We're seeing the results of climate change more and more, rising sea levels right here in Connecticut. So people are, coming face to face with it. Now, I hesitate to call that a silver lining, but the fact that people are becoming more aware because it's in your face right now where you live in Connecticut, I think is going to be changing the paradigm a little
Mhm.
bit. I certainly hope it does. Let's take a break. We'll come right back and we'll talk some more about some of the points of engagement you've had, which are fascinating and numerous. So we'll be right back. We'll return to our program in just a moment. You've been listening to The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. Yes, we are now accepting applications for our 2026 Fellowship program. Don't miss it. Fellows gain valuable experience working within a professional setting and are directly engaged in supporting cutting-edge sustainability initiatives, local government operations, and regional coordination and operation. Fellows build a deep professional network that spans across local, state, and regional government, as well as with nonprofits and organizations supporting sustainability initiatives in the state of Connecticut. The application deadline is February 9th at 5 p.m. You must be enrolled in a post-secondary degree program or must have graduated in the most recent academic year, 2025-26. You must be either enrolled in a Connecticut college or university or be a permanent resident of the state. And you must be located in the state of Connecticut for the duration of the fellowship. Yeah. Applicants must be authorized to work for an employer in the United States. You can email applications to Lily Adamo at lilya@sustainablect.org. And you can find out more about the Sustainable CT Fellowship Program at where else? sustainablect.org. And I didn't want to miss the opportunity to thank all of you who supported our 2025 campaign for a Sustainable CT. We concluded our annual appeal on December 31st, and your support has made it a very happy new year indeed. 2025 was a challenging economic year for just about everybody, so we are especially gratified to have received the tremendous support of so many people who care deeply about sustainability in Connecticut and beyond. We are honored by your trust and remain dedicated to maximizing every contribution as we help more communities across the state become thriving, inclusive, and climate resilient in 2026. Thank you for being our partner in progress. All right, let's get back to the program. Welcome back, everybody. We're talking to Adrian Huq, who is a new member of our Sustainable CT Board of Directors and has a long relationship with us. So let me get back to what we were talking about. You've done a lot of things, and let's talk about some of the points of engagement you've had in your activism, because I think it's especially instructive for other young people coming up. So let's start with the nonprofit management program for emerging leaders of color in the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven. What is that about? Why did you feel it was important to be involved in that?
Absolutely. So the program is relatively new. It's in its fourth cohort, and it's a 2-year program for staff who are middle managers employed at nonprofits in Greater New Haven. So I'm in the program in my capacity as a staff member for the New Haven Leon Sister City Project, which is a binational nonprofit that does work in both New Haven and Nicaragua, and in Nicaragua focusing on sustainable development and social change. But in our New Haven arm of work, we do a lot of environmental initiatives, and New Haven Climate Movement lives under that umbrella. So really happy to bring that activist perspective to this program as well. And so it provides us with sustainable development and professional development and that cohort experience with other middle managers at nonprofits within our region. So it's been really exciting to get to know my cohort mates who are working in various nonprofits and see how there could be synergy between our organizations. And it's also a space for us to speak candidly about the struggles of working in nonprofits, especially small ones, and navigating leadership challenges, whether personally, professionally, all of the above. And I know a lot of alum of the program, so it was a big professional goal for me to try to get accepted into the program, and I'm so glad that I am. And yeah, it's overall helps me see myself as more of a and it's in the name itself, an emerging leader within
Yeah.
the nonprofit world. So I'm really thankful to be a part of the program, and I think it's giving me a lot of important insights about what it looks like to work in the nonprofit management space, to strive for executive level roles in the future, and it really empowers us to see us as emerging leaders in the field and as people who can be the next leaders for Greater New Haven nonprofits.
Well, and you touched on it earlier too. It's really helpful, isn't it, to have a peer group? It's almost like, you're not alone. There's other people are in this. We're all in this together. You're certainly in this group that has common understanding, common desires. You can support one another. You can see, give each other advice a little bit on how to navigate some of the nonsense that you've no doubt run into. So that's got to be sweet, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah, we definitely talk about, the changing landscapes overall, like nationally, like attacks towards nonprofits. And yeah, so it's really important to be able to have those conversations with people in similar boats and yeah, to really understand like the political implications of working in nonprofits right now and challenges that come with that. So yeah,
yeah.
just really valuable to be a part of that.
Now, speaking of young people, you've also worked a great deal with student groups and youth groups, and you're co-founder of the New Haven Climate Movement Youth Action Team, Connecticut Climate Education Advisory Committee, these things. Now, you're a relatively young person yourself, so there's an obvious connection there. But tell us a little bit about your motivation, your philosophy, about youth activism. What are your thoughts there? Why? Give us a why.
Hmm. Yeah, overall, I'm really glad that I was pushed into the organizing space. I think I had sort of that activist spirit that wasn't fully tapped into until I was pushed into it. So I definitely had lots of environmental inclinations growing up in terms of being very concerned about food waste, about trash, recycling, all those things that once I reached the high school level was snowballed and was supported by my teachers and my classmates and being able to make change on the school and school district level and raising these issues to a larger level. But it was only later in my junior year of high school where I was introduced to energy efficiency work and had an internship related to that. That was really interesting to me to be able to be an educator to my peers about
Yeah,
such a such an interesting topic that not many people are thinking about, especially as teenagers. And then later, at the end of that year, being introduced to New Haven Climate Movement, which at the time was more so of a coalition and had, adult volunteer members. Youth were not involved yet. So being pushed to, organize a rally and then later on, after that successful rally, co-found the youth action team and have teenagers and college students be, the main part of our organization moving forward from there. That was really impactful and important to me, especially on that climate level, thinking about how Generation Z, Generation Alpha, and future generations are going to, deal with environmental challenges at an unprecedented scale, and how climate disasters and daily disruptions will be part of our futures. So really important, I think, for young people to push back and be engaged in climate work because it truly is our future. But yeah, overall, still feel very connected and passionate about youth activism because I think if I didn't receive that push to get into organizing, that I wouldn't be here right now. Definitely that sort of activist perspective has bled into every single role that I've had and has certainly enriched my life in so many ways and how I approach my professional work through like socially and politically engaged nonprofit work. So I think it's super important as well on the side of the young person because it's teaching you so many skills. Like I got so comfortable with public speaking and giving testimony and
yeah.
standing up in front of my peers and encouraging them to come to a rally and whatnot. So
It's
I
a
learned
liberal
so
education.
much like professionally and personally and developed so many community connections that have served me really well over time.
I this past weekend, I went to a anti-ice rally. I don't
Hmm.
mind telling people that. And like the way these things go recently, the No Kings, the ice rallies, there are a lot of old people.
Hmm.
And like I said, I'm an old guy. That's so I'm used to that peer group. But there aren't enough young people. There aren't enough young faces standing up, speaking out. Now, why that is, I don't mean to sound like I'm blaming the youth of this country. I'm not. We're having difficulty finding a way of engaging with a youthful audience, and we got to find a way to do it. We got to bring, the next generations into this process of activism, of standing up, of
Hmm.
showing up. And I mean, it's the same. The same is true now. Environmentalism, for instance, has been a chronic challenge in attracting people of color and involving people of color. You go to environmental summits and environmental organizations, and
Hmm.
it's just a sea of white faces. And it is a very difficult thing to crack. And I see it, and I'm not comfortable with it, and I don't like it, and I want to change it, and I often don't know how. And I
Hmm.
lack the skills, lack the language, lack the, a way to do this. But we've got to find ways to involve everybody, diversity of opinions, of engagement, and younger people, because otherwise, this is, we're going nowhere.
Hmm.
So thank you, putting a fire under the rear ends of the young folks, get them out there and engaging, because it's very important.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for raising that. I think it's also, yeah, it's something that I see as well in terms of environmental spaces being white dominated or adult dominated, and I think it's really important for especially when it trying to attract young leaders that adults can step aside and make space for,
Yeah,
young people's voices. It's intimidating to be stepping into the activist space and seeing, everyone is like 2 to 3 times your age. So really like making space for young leaders, making them feel welcomed, and similarly for people of color, attracting them to environmental work and sort of meeting people where they are, and not being afraid to, incorporate social justice and environmental justice into your activism, because there is a divide definitely between environmental justice work and overall, the environmental work in general that is, what we see a lot. Yeah, I guess from white-led organizations, and just being able to work together more and intentionally make space for people and for their interests, what they bring to the table, and overall just, yeah, trying to bridge those divides that have really plagued the environmental movement for decades and is still a rift that needs to be fulfilled.
yeah, and meeting people where they live.
Hmm.
It's crazy. White middle class, upper middle class, even we're living a world separate and apart from the reality that a lot of people are living. Now,
Hmm.
I remember what it was like to be dirt poor. I remember. I haven't forgotten that. So, and I know it's you got to try to meet people where they're at, and I don't think we do that enough. We
Hmm.
keep expecting people to have transportation and childcare and the freedom to be able to do things and contribute here and donate there and give your time.
Hmm.
And it isn't that simple. Times are
Hmm.
tough and getting tougher as the wealth disparity keeps growing. We got to do a better job of meeting people where they
Yeah,
are.
especially in Connecticut, where, there are so many transportation challenges. There's
Yeah,
huge segregation, wealth inequality, and, just seeing these similar patterns repeated of, yes, if you have a meeting at 12 p.m. about environmental work, then, potentially people who are retired and old are going to
yeah.
come to that
Who's
meeting,
going
and
to
it's
show
not
up? Right. Yeah.
accessible to all. So yeah, those are things that a lot of organizations need to work on in terms of, being aware of. And it's not just a Connecticut issue, of course, but yeah, of, the times and the locations and accessibility of the work that we do, and trying to attract more people to the work means meeting people
Yeah.
where they are, as you said.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all the stuff you've done and are doing, and this is it's the worst interview question ever, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Think of one that's really been the most challenging for you. What is there anything that's really stood out as being really difficult that you've run into in all the stuff that you've done?
Yeah, I believe so. As a nonprofit worker, I think there's always potentially a push and pull of like how political we can be.
Yeah.
Like my organization is, explicitly political, and we don't deny that. And the work that we do is engage with the civic process and city government. But nationally, there's obligations that nonprofits need to abide by when it comes to political engaged work. And that's also something that funders are hesitant about at times. So, yeah, making sure that we're aligned with our values, of course, but also having to toe the line that all nonprofits do in terms of political engagement. And then also in my own personal life, I don't deny that I'm a biased person. And so that comes up in the work that I do, even, as a freelance reporter. I'm transparent about the angle that I'm doing my stories at. I try to, cover environmental stories, climate activist stories, and of course there's a a conflict with that inherently when it comes to, looking at journalism overall. But thankfully, we have a wonderful editor who's welcoming towards like activist perspectives and angles when it comes to the written work that we do. So yeah, I'm thankful to be in spaces where that, my whole self is accepted in terms of yes, I work for a nonprofit. Yes, I'm an activist. These are my beliefs, and especially also now stepping into board roles, being careful about like conflicts of interest, confidentiality, working ethically. So these are all things I guess that I do have to and will continue to have to balance. But for now, I'm excited to be my full self and to bring my opinions and my beliefs to the roles that I'm in, but understanding that there's limitations and in working in professional spaces, of course. And
Yeah,
yeah, so I think, that's the story of a publicly engaged activist who also, works on the inside. Those are, conflicts I'm going to
sure.
continue to have to carry. Yeah.
Boy, I identify with that for sure. It's very difficult. And we are, as a group, nonpartisan. Climate issues and the environment have nothing to do with party politics as far as we're concerned.
Mhm.
And yet, in the current political climate, it is a very difficult challenge to balance that. And what is your messaging and how do you cross over into advocacy at some point? And
Mm.
you got to be very careful. And I mean, even me, just going on about attending a anti-ice rally. That's probably a no. I probably should not tell people that. I don't know. I get into that. We get
Mhm.
into that whole issue a lot about how can we be all things to all people and yet still keep in mind what it is we're trying to do.
Mhm.
Yeah, there is certainly a challenge in that. Where do you think you've had the biggest effect so far? I mean, again, kind of a stupid question, very broad, but you've done a lot of things and you've been quite successful in. There's got to be some stuff that you feel very proud about and know that you've had some great deal of success in. What would
Mhm.
something be an example there?
Yeah, I would say I feel proud of a lot of work that New Haven Climate Movement does. So, for example, on the policy side of things, we've passed several resolutions over the last 7 years, including, the New Haven Climate Emergency Resolution, committing our city to reach zero emissions by 2030. We also got the New Haven Board of Education to pass their climate emergency resolution, passed a citywide electrification resolution, committing the city to electrifying their buildings and their fleet. So really a lot of things that kind of, snowball and really get us towards that emissions reduction. But also on the financial side, like we've had a lot of successes that are related to, monetary contributions from the city to go towards climate work. So that's
Yeah.
been, millions of dollars over time, such as a few years ago, getting the city to commit $5 million towards a carbon-free future program using some American Rescue Plan funding. So yeah, there's been a lot of policy and financial goals that we've been able to achieve. But also, I think keeping climate in the conversation is something that I'm proud of and building relationships with organizers and staff at other organizations, keeping climate change in the media in terms of our local newspapers and radio. So consistently being a voice for climate work over the last few years, I think has been very special since, yeah, I feel like nationally, internationally, climate has fallen to the back burner. There was a lot of attention towards climate change work in 2018, 2019. For example, when Greta Thunberg's youth-led climate rallies were really taking off, there was so much media attention towards it. And so the fact that, that's been waning over time and, meaningfully there's been a lot of really important social and political attention towards other issues of our time, which are very important for people to be paying attention to. But climate has kind of fallen onto the back burner overall in terms of the activist landscape, I feel.
Yeah.
So being a consistent voice for that is important to me. And lastly, also the youth development piece, like seeing a lot of the youth that I've supervised as my interns go on to Ivy League schools. I'm like very, very proud of them and to be able to be a supervisor and a mentor to so many high school students over my time as a supervisor has been really impactful to me and sort of giving back to high schoolers of the school district that I attended. So I think it's really special for me to be able to foster professional growth and academic growth for young people and to give back to my school system in that way and to see, their bright futures ahead, whether or not they pursue a green career. But yeah, just really excited to have our youth go off to college and do great things.
That's been one of my greatest points of satisfaction in this job. Just engaging with the students who are coming up, or even the people I'm working with who are quite young too, and being able. I don't sound condescending. I'm not teaching them stuff. I'm just giving of myself. I'm sharing what my experiences have been, and some of them scarring, frankly. So I have some measure of experience to be able to talk about that, pass that on, and see that this next generation coming up is going to do well. It's going to do a hell of a lot better than mine did. They're going to have to. I mean, that's kind of double-edged sword. We kind of blew it along the way, and we're putting a lot of pressure on young people as they're coming up to fix all the crap that we broke. But I have great faith that they can. It keeps me very positive in that respect. And I'm not always a very positive guy. I look at some of the stuff going on, especially, going back to the earlier conversation, we were talking about, the political situation we're in. It can be pretty depressing and makes me worry about the future. So finding those points that do give me some positive energy is very important. Are you feeling positive about the future? Do you look at the future and say, we can do this, it's going to be okay, or what's your sense?
Mhm. Yeah, I would say, thankfully, in my personal life and my attitude, I'm glad to have positive attitude as I approach each day, and that's kind of naturally part of my nature. But it also, I guess, working on that local level keeps me energized,
Yeah.
in terms of working on city level change. It keeps me energized working with a core group of organizers. We meet twice a week. We email each other every day, and so it's nice to have a team that, is value aligned and will continue to work towards these goals no matter what happens on a national or even state level. We keep our work going on that grassroots level to advance city level climate policy and work. So I think that's rewarding to me, and that keeps my morale up. But yeah, just on the larger landscape, there's a lot that does, keep me up at night and make me worried about, reaching our climate goals. Like for example, 2025 was a huge boom for AI usage and integration within search engines and, any platform you can think of. There's kind of
Yeah.
like an AI integration now. So, and that's really hurting our globally, our energy and water conservation goals. So that's been something that I've been thinking about and concerned about over the last year. And yeah, so there's some real threats to meeting our climate goals. And it's kind of sometimes feels like one step forward, two steps back. But at least on the local scale, I'm still energized. But there's so many setbacks that we're seeing on the national and international scale, that's attacking the work on the ground. Like even my organization, losing EPA funding and so many nonprofit workers around me like being laid off or being let go because their organizations, couldn't afford to keep moving. And yeah, so seeing how these federal attacks are, reaching Connecticut, it's concerning and it's holding back our climate work and weakening our federal response to the climate emergency.
It's a little disheartening too, because we seem to be making progress. We were making some progress. It was slow, it was agonizing, and then along comes not just changes in the federal leadership, shall we say, but also, as you point out, AI just hit us between the eyes. It's
Mhm.
like, and that's an ongoing issue, unresolved, still out there, having a tremendous effect on our environment and our behavior, everything. What is going to be happening with that, just in terms of the effect of the environment alone, is still an open question and a very scary thing. It's one more hoop for us to jump through. This hoop is burning. We're trying to figure out a way to jump through this. Adrian, we are out of time. You see how that just went zoom? It just was zoomed right by.
Mhm.
We are out of time, and I want to just thank you so much for doing this. It's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you
Hope to
so
do it
much,
again.
Jim. That was a great conversation. I hope that Yes, I guess to leave us off on a hopeful note, despite the
Yeah, please
horrors.
do. Please do.
Yes, we will stay energized on this Connecticut level and on this municipal level,
You're right.
advancing, making our municipalities a more sustainable and equitable place to live, no matter what. So.
Absolutely. Keep on keeping on. We hope you've enjoyed today's edition of The Impact, a Sustainable CT podcast. This program was written, recorded, edited, and produced by me. And as always, it is copyrighted by Sustainable CT. Thank you for your interest. Thank you for listening. Thank you to our sponsor, the Tremaine Foundation. Thanks to our guest, Adrian Huq, for everything they do to make Connecticut and our world a better place. And thanks to everyone for taking local actions that have a statewide impact.